Two.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rich Madalino. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the Montgomery County Government. I am filling in today on the media briefing for County Executive Marc Elrich, who is in Japan as we speak, with Council Member Will Jawando, and part of our economic development efforts to bring more businesses to Montgomery County, Maryland. Interestingly, the county executive is in Japan at the same time as the president is in Japan working on trade deals. So we expect to see karaoke photos of the president, Donald Trump, and the prime minister. So um, we'll see if that comes to pass. But it's his ongoing efforts to make sure that there's job growth in Montgomery County. And certainly we are a very attractive place for a variety of international businesses to find their U.S. hubs. So for the past week, he was in China, and now the remainder of this week in Japan. Um, so Last night, we hosted a town hall, a budget forum for the Spanish speaking community. We had a number of people turn out at Gaithersburg High School to talk about the county executive's FY27 budget, the budget he will submit on March 15th, that will go into effect on July 1st of next year. We heard many incredibly powerful stories of families facing difficult situations because of the current environment on immigration and immigration enforcement. We also heard some truly remarkable stories of people who were greatly appreciative to the I think the goodness of this community, the strength of our community, the goodness of our residents who want to make sure that people have access to healthcare, that people have access to affordable housing, that people have access to food, um, and how through the good work of our county government, in no small measure, our Department of Health and Human Services, it's been able to provide people with the support they need to build their lives here or to rebuild their lives after a horrible health situation or the loss of a loved one, whether that's to a medical condition or, as we heard last night, a powerful testimony from a young man who is now raising his siblings as his mother has been deported. So, um, I just want to say thank you to the people of Montgomery County who allow us to do this great work each and every day. Um, you know, while we heard a level of stress and concern from one facet of our community, clearly this is also a stressful time for many other households in our community as the federal shutdown goes on. And whether you are a federal employee who is dealing with this, but hopefully will just be a temporary loss of income, or a federal contractor who's in the same situation, or one of the countless family residents, county residents who is going to be dealing with the potential loss in benefits, especially food benefits through the SNAP program, what was once called food stamps. Um, we feel your pain. We are working very diligently to come up with solutions, other things that we can do to make sure that we can step in as much as possible. Um, you know, SNAP, the Women and Infant Children's Program, WIC, provide a great degree of assistance to people across our county. I believe 68,000 Montgomery County residents are enrolled in SNAP, including 29,000 children. Those benefits will be suspended on November 1st, um, unless there is a conclusion to this government shutdown. This level of pain is unnecessary within the community. Certainly, Congress could act on this. The president could fix this. But if that does not happen, um, we are prepared in a variety of ways. I don't think there is a local government in this region. I think there are very few places, state or local governments, that put in the level of support that we put into food resources each and every day. the current budget year, FY26, includes $23.5 million in food services. You're going to hear from our amazing Heather Bruskin Boyce, who is our director of our Office of Food Systems Resilience. Um, but before that, I just want to go over, just the level of effort that we are already putting in food to make sure that our hubs around the county continue to have food to give out to people. $5.4 million to the hub support, another 3.5 to provide food distributions to the hubs, a senior nutrition program that's combined between HHS and our rec department that provides services through our senior centers. $3.6 million in community food assistance grant program that I think Heather's office is going to be announcing information about that quite shortly, and who the recipients are going to be. $2.3 million in school-based food assistance. We already provide Manna Foods Center, $1.4 million. We have a retail food access program, $1.6 million. We are providing money each and every day to people to help with their food. We have been doing this for years now. We are amongst the only governments that continue to support the network of providers that we built up during COVID when we stepped up to help people who were dealing with an emergency situation. Then we've continued those services. The county executive has fought each and every year to make sure those programs continue to be funded, and he has succeeded in getting that support through the county council. And we are thrilled to know that at this moment of great challenge and stress within the community, the council is interested in stepping up and providing even more. The county executive has been engaged with us while he's been in Asia to support these efforts, and is glad that the council is coming along and is going to provide more money for our food system program. But I don't want anyone to be left with the idea of, oh, we're not doing anything until this extra round of food. We are putting in, again, $23.5 million. I challenge you to find other governments that have this level of support for people in need, and we are going to continue to step in. We do not have the resources to simply backfill people whose SNAP benefits are going to expire. But we have the ability. We have a network of providers who can step in and help smooth out this problem right now. And so we're proud of those partnerships. They are doing incredible work. It's a stressful time for them too. But thank you to all of those organizations. And I now am going to invite Heather to join the conversation and to talk a little bit about what her Office of Food Systems Resilience is doing, and how we can keep up our momentum in helping now during hopefully what will be a short period of time. Here's hoping it won't even come to pass because they will resolve everything before November 1st. But she's going to give a little information about what we are doing in this near term, and then what we do each and every day in the Montgomery County government. Heather.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this conversation today, and for all of your leadership of this important work that our county is doing, both in blue sky times as well as in the challenge that we find ourselves in. So I think that it would be helpful just to share, to start our conversation with, what does food insecurity look like in Montgomery County, and what did it look like before the change in federal administration? In our community, there is a high cost of living. That means we have 150,000 residents who live in what we call the SNAP gap. They make too much to qualify for federal nutrition and assistance programs, but they don't make enough to cover their basic cost of living and put food on the table for their family. So overall, before of this change in administration and federal policies happened, we had about 3 in 10 residents who were at risk of hunger. And so because their incomes fell below that self-sufficiency standard. You can see here that those in green are those that fall in the SNAP gap. Those in blue are the ones that qualify for SNAP. And so we have about 70,000 residents on average, about 30,000 children that participate in SNAP, receiving each household an average of about $180 per month for their grocery shopping. So the landscape that we find ourselves in right now is very complicated. And I think it's also important to note that the families that fall in this area that's shaded gray, we traditionally would make the assumption that they have sufficient financial means to cover their cost of living and feed their families. But due to the changes in the federal landscape, it's likely that those families are now at risk too and seeking support. So a summary of what is happening in the landscape right now. The SNAP October benefits were dispersed. However, the November benefits are on hold. The federal government does have contingency funds for events just like this, where they could be released to states to at least provide partial benefits. But the states have been told by the federal government that no November benefits are allowed to be released, which is causing tremendous panic here in our county. And it's important to note that in Montgomery County alone, it's about $12 million every month that are made in SNAP purchases at grocery stores and farmers markets and on-farm markets. So this is not just a loss of money for our neighbors to feed their families, but also for our retail sector. So the economic impacts of this will be significant, particularly for our smaller locally owned grocers and our farmers market vendors who rely on these benefits being spent in their locations. So we are also watching WIC, which had some additional federal money infused into that program for October benefits, but it is uncertain if they will continue after November 1st. And school meals will continue to be offered, but it's important to note that the reimbursements that our school system receives from the federal government are on hold as well. So if the shutdown continues, this will be increasingly a challenge. And we also have the landscape that Rich just alluded to with furloughed workers, the end of September causing the end of the deferred resignation payments. And there are ripple effects across sectors. When you think about how people are spending less on discretionary items, that will directly impact our service workers who are often relying on tips or are in low wage positions and will have a loss of income as well. This is at a time when inflation is also causing food prices to go up. It's about 3% over last year and over 20% over the last few years. We're also closely watching what impacts HR 1 will have on our local food system. SNAP will be impacted increasingly over the next coming years, but immediately starting November 1st, new regulations will be in place, expanding work requirements, reducing the amount of benefits that families will be receiving. And every year, the reevaluation of the benefits will be capped where it never has been before. So we will see a snowballing effect of the impact of this loss of money in our economy. Costs will also be shifting to states, both for the administration of SNAP. So for Maryland, starting next fiscal year, that'll be about $60 million of impacts. And for the actual cost of benefits themselves, that's expected in 2 to 3 fiscal years to be an additional $220 million or more for the state of Maryland to cover. And so these are costs that will have trickle-down effects to counties as well. And we are seeing that our refugees and asylees who typically had been able to benefit from SNAP starting November 1st will no longer be allowed to access, to participate in that program. And that will be effective either with new applications or at the time of recertification, which happens for families throughout the year. We're also tracking the impact of SNAP Ed and how those nutrition education programs will no longer be available to children in Montgomery County across 46 different early childhood and school-based sites. Our community partners are also feeling these impacts as the change in funds available from the federal government to administer SNAP will support the nonprofit organizations that directly support residents in applying to these programs. A bit of good news is that our county saw challenges like this coming, and through the visionary leadership of our county executive, the Office of Food Systems Resilience was created in 2023 to strengthen our community in the face of whatever disruptions will happen in our food supply chain, whether it's a public health crisis, a hurricane, a federal disruption in policy. There are things that will always impact the way our neighbors are able to access food. And so we have implemented a diverse strategy, which has been financially supported by our county exclusively with local dollars to make data-driven strategic decisions about how we partner with community organizations, and that it is not a one-size-fits-all way to support food security strategies in our community, but that we are leaning into the expertise of our neighbors to be able to support our food assistance programs. And so just very quickly here, Rich has already outlined a number of these, but we invest about $13 million, again, of county funds. I have not seen an Office of Food Systems Resilience or a local food budget like this anywhere else in the country. And so these impacts are critically important, both in everyday situations for food security, but especially in emergencies like now.
If I can just say, just to reiterate, again, when Heather said we, she's talking about just the Office of Food Systems Resilience. There is other money in the Department of Health and Human Services in excess of 10 million, which is where I got that $23 million figure from. So she was being just we about her office as opposed to we, the Montgomery County government.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. And so the Office of Food Systems Resilience programs, which add up to that 13 of the 23, supports a variety of programs that have partnerships with healthcare providers, with school-based food assistance entities and MCPS partners, as well as farms and local grocers, as well as national grocery chains. And so an example of how these funds are administered is our Community Food Assistance Grant Program, which supports 49 different food assistance providers. About half of them are faith-based institutions that operate a variety of programs. So we have 38 organizations that do choice pantries where families can go and shop for food just like they would at the grocery store, choose the items that align with their unique household needs. But at a cost that is funded by the county government. We also have family markets and drive-through grab and goes, as well as prepared meals for families and households that are challenged in having the time or the means to prepare their own food. We also support organizations across a wide variety of funding levels, and these programs are investing in every single zip code in our county. Having these partnerships also enables us to gather information really quickly in emergencies, just like now. And so last week, we administered a pulse survey across all of our different food assistance provider organizations to get information on what they're seeing on the ground. Unsurprisingly, we're seeing that almost all of them are experiencing an increase in demand. About 3/4 of them are seeing an increase in their costs. And all different types of distributions are seeing increased service needs. So that's an important thing to follow, that it's not just home deliveries or prepared meals or boxes, but it is all types of food assistance. And we're also seeing some trends in the resources that are coming to our food assistance provider partners outside of government are on the decline, and that they are able to keep up with the demand, with the resources that they have, but that the money is likely to run out when we face a surge in furloughed workers, in SNAP beneficiaries, and others who are turning to assistance. And you can see that 80% of our partners are seeing families that are asking for support for the very first time. We also have an MC Groceries program partnership with Instacart that supports over 1,000 children whose families are not eligible for SNAP because they fall in that SNAP gap, to be able to shop at the retailer of their choice and have that food delivered to their home. These are working families that need assistance with the time and transportation barriers that it takes to support children and while they're holding a job. we're investing as an entire county government in making sure that we communicate about the resources that are available because we know so many of our residents are not sure where to turn. We have a comprehensive website on the OFSR site as well as on the county government site where all of the different types of food assistance resources can be identified. We also have a campaign that is specific here related to the shutdown. So there are some shutdown specific distributions that are happening from the Capital Area Food Bank as well as other community partners. And there is a real-time calendar of food distribution events that all of the OFSR's grantees are required to post on so that residents can go and see what's available to them on that day. The Montgomery County Food Council also has an interactive map so that neighbors can go to the map to see what food assistance sites are located near them or near where they work. So we can get information to residents on what is time-wise most convenient to them or location-wise, or that provides them the information on what type of food assistance they're looking for. And then finally, we're seeking to connect directly with residents so that we can create those communication pathways, both in everyday times as well as in crisis just like now. And so we're encouraging all of our community partners to send this information out to residents so they can quickly sign up to get on our list to respond to surveys, to get additional information about food assistance resources available, and also share their stories because it's critically important that we hear from neighbors on what they are experiencing in the moment. And the last piece that I will end with is, in addition to the money that we have been putting into purchasing food, and I will note that about 25% of all of the food that is purchased through OFSR programs is bought from county farms, is supporting directly our local businesses. But we have also been investing in the infrastructure and the network of our community so that we can quickly scale up resources in an emergency. And we've been providing not just funding, but technical assistance, convening mechanisms of geographic and subject matter specific type of our partners so they can learn from each other about how to address these challenges. And I think that these investments are showing up in meaningful ways. The Capital Area Food Bank just did their 2025 hunger report release. And one trend that they noticed is across the DMV region, Montgomery County is the only jurisdiction where food insecure residents are increasingly being connected with resources. Over the past 3 years, our food insecure community is shown to be connected to the system that we have been building, while in all other jurisdictions, that number is going down. And that speaks directly to the investments that we've been making in building this safety net to support our residents. And so happy to answer any questions, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Heather. I know Tom Fitzgerald already has his hand up. We're going to take a pause so that we can get some questions in specifically about this topic before we move on to our second topic, which is the leaves and leaf collection and the movement towards fall in the county. I do want to say, because I don't think Heather mentioned this, that our programs are so comprehensive. We even have a food pantry, a pet food pantry through animal services for people to access pet food, recognizing that this time of challenges, economic challenges for so many, that their pets being part of the family, we even have a program for pet food through animal services. So, and one other brief point before questions, Heather, just to be clear, I think you said this to me the other day, or the HHS team reminded us that their benefit cards will actually stop working on the 1st.
Yes, thank you for lifting that up. So I think that's a great example of how there is so much uncertainty and lack of clarity that's coming from the federal government, that was something that had been understood but was shown to be not true last week. And so there are food assistance providers, and the county funds 6 different nonprofit organizations to provide SNAP navigation support to neighbors. They're getting lots of calls with concerns about, are my benefits going to be there? Will they work after November 1st? October benefits, which some families are saving for Thanksgiving, should still be on their cards into November. It's just that the November benefits won't be accessible.
All right, so we'll go to questions. Tom Fitzgerald with Box 5, you had your hand up first.
Thanks for doing this briefing, Rich. You expressed a lot of confidence in the systems that the county has to deal with hunger right now in the face of this government shutdown. But you're not the federal government. You don't have the resources as the federal government. You've dealt recently in the last couple of years with, budget situations that were tough. How long can you go before this starts cutting into bone?
So what I tried to say is if only the federal government was more like Montgomery County, we would have a wonderful country that was already great. But we have the network to provide support to people. We can, as Heather mentioned, we can scale up that network and put in more resources. I tried to say in my opening comments, we cannot step in for the federal government. We cannot supplant the SNAP benefits that are going to be lost to 68,000 Montgomery County residents. As Heather said, $12 million. There's no mechanism for us, even if we wanted to put $12 million out through and onto people's benefit cards. There is no mechanism for us or any state or local government to do that. So well, maybe the state governments can do it, but the local government can't. So therefore, this is what we're trying to do. We have an existing network of support with $23.5 million already in the budget because of the county executive and county council's commitment to these issues over many years. The county executive and county council are going to make sure that more money comes into this system to help food, to help nonprofit groups in our county through this moment of challenge. But it will not replace what the federal government is refusing to provide to our residents and to the people of this country.
And if I could just follow, this isn't just a problem that happens on Friday. We've been dealing with this shutdown for 28 days. The Doge layoffs hit Montgomery County particularly hard. What has this year been like for county government in trying to provide support and aid in the face of all of these layoffs and furloughs and now this shutdown?
So this has been a challenging year. In many ways, there have been surprises. Our our two main revenue sources are the income tax and the property tax, as you well know. Our income tax receipts, we don't collect the income tax, the state does. They come to us. They have remained on target for each and every one of our distributions. The state's Board of Revenue estimates, as you know, met a few weeks ago and did not revise the state's income tax projections. Yes, many people have lost their jobs. Some voluntarily have decided to retire. Other people are doing quite well in our community and in our state. Property taxes property values remain high. Property sales have picked up. It's an interesting time that has led for some surprises, some pleasant surprises as to what's been happening to our tax base. Montgomery County and the local governments in Maryland have a different tax structure than the District of Columbia or Northern Virginia. So that's the things I'm saying are reflective of the tax structure of local governments in Maryland, which is why you might have someone who's saying like, oh, that's not at all what I've heard from Fairfax County. Well, they have a different structure in Virginia, and so they have different exposures that we do not have at this time. So if you're looking from that perspective, I've been surprised now, pleasantly surprised. Now, we've seen demands, and I'm sure, I don't know if Dr. Bridgers wants to talk at all, or Dr. Ashford from a public health perspective. What's happening as people, as people turn to health clinics, as people come in looking for assistance. Last week we hosted Congressman Raskin. Prior week we hosted Governor Moore and Congressman April McLean Delaney, and to talk about what was happening with the potential end of the tax credits for Obamacare, and how many people might lose health insurance in our community, and what that would mean as people shift from their regular providers to emergency rooms or to the clinics that we try to support across the community. There are some warning signs on the horizon about need. Heather had that in her presentation about the changes from the Trump Reconciliation Act, and what that, otherwise known as the one big bill, and what that will do to SNAP benefits and other government services. So, it's been a complex time. We are constantly, as a smart government, we are constantly trying to figure out what's happening now, what's happening next. And we are fortunate to have amazing leaders across our county, incredible 10,000 people who work for our county every day. But people like Dr. Bridgers, Dr. Ashford, Dr. Stoddard, and Director Bruskin as proof that we don't hire everyone with PhDs. So we are fortunate to have this team of leaders, and that's why I don't know if they have anything they want to share now or to touch upon later.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Madaleno, for that. And Tom, thank you for your question and all of the reporters on this afternoon. So the Department of Health and Human Services has been working with our great leaders and partners like Ms. Bruskin and her Office of Food Systems Resiliency. We've been trying to forecast and predict what will happen if there are changes to the Affordable Health Care Act premiums. We don't know. If there are changes to Medicaid reimbursements and all of those other things that we've been tracking and monitoring for 10 months now. And even though we have the data, what we can tell you is where we are now, as Ms. Bruskin illustrated in some of her data analysis and graphs. And so what we're waiting for is additional guidance to direct and target those much needed services, and maybe adjust policies that we have, as Mr. Madaleno has stated and restated. But there are certain unknowns that we don't know. We don't know what the referral mechanism will be like. We know that there will be stressors in the system throughout the Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services, for our children, youth, and families, behavioral health, our services to end and prevent homelessness, and what that will do. We saw the executive orders and some of the anticipated increases in migration into Montgomery County. That did not happen, but we have to make the necessary adjustments and plan for that, even if it doesn't happen. And so those are the scenarios that we are playing through and working through and trying to develop plans and targeted implementation for those. But that variable of uncertainty and that unknown still looms, and we just don't know. So we can't craft policies, and we can't even make suggestions to changes to policies, but we've been working with all of our partners and our hospital systems and all of those agencies that we support. We've also been reaching out to our for-profit and working with our nonprofit Montgomery partners. And lastly, looking at part of the HR 1 in that bill, looking at how we can help those if changes happen to Medicaid expansion, where folks may be required to seek employment between 18 to 64. What does that mean? How do we respond? So we've been working with WorkSource Montgomery and to look at placements of those strategies so that we can minimize stress. And then lastly, providing information that will help folks work through these stressful times, where we have mechanisms like our 988 and our crisis service center and the numbers and the access. And we ask all folks who are in need to reach out so that we can continue to provide help. And lastly, to have conversations, as Mr. Madaleno referenced, with our federal and state leaders, but also with our local leaders to develop advocacy groups where we can actually listen and understand what those needs are so that we can make the necessary adjustments and or the recommendations to the county executive and the county council so that we can develop and identify better outcomes.
Okay, Chaley from Bethesda Today.
Yes. So I actually have a question for you, Rich. You mentioned in response to an earlier question that local governments definitely don't have the resources to backfill SNAP benefits for any significant period of time. You mentioned that some states actually might, which brings me to the idea of, obviously, Governor Moore has said the state has no plans to backfill at all. So I'm wondering, is there any idea of trying to lean on the state, trying to, maybe convince the governor to release some of those reserves?
So what I was trying to say when I so artfully, and thank you, Chaley, for bringing that up, was I was trying to say that we lack the mechanism to add money to the benefit cards, for example. I don't know, and then I said the states don't either, and then I was like, well, I don't know if that, maybe the state could add money to benefits. So then that I know that Montgomery County Delegate Emily Shetty is going to be holding a hearing tomorrow, or the Appropriations Committee is going to be holding a hearing tomorrow in Annapolis to look at this very issue. So I don't know if the state could do it. Obviously, I said $12 million for Montgomery County. I don't know. Maybe Heather knows off the top of her head what the total is for the entire state of Maryland. I'm going to assume that is a far bigger number for the entire state of Maryland.
It's closer to 150 million per month.
150 million, and that I don't know if the state has the ability to do that. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the president announced that, hey, we will backfill these benefits? I'm more concerned about actually people being fed than people going hungry, and therefore states continue to put this money in and we'll make it good. I think there are rumors floating around that message has been given to some state governments and not other state governments. But again, that's a rumor from the dark web, where Earl Stoddard hangs out. So I don't know if that's how accurate that is, but
yeah, I was going to echo what you're saying there, Rich. I don't know that we have the full context of the conversation that's happening between the states and the federal government to be able to opine as to what, the options for the state really are at this point. And so I think it would be inappropriate for us to go further than that.
all right. More questions on the food topic before I move on? Okay, everyone is full. So we will go to, thank you, Heather, very much for your work, for being on the briefing today, and what you and your colleagues are doing every day to make sure we tackle this issue smartly in Montgomery County. I think hopefully from the presentation, people will see that we are doing things remarkably well, and in a thoughtful and broad way that other communities around the country have not put in the same level of effort. So thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Have a great day.
So now we're going to bring in Mary Travaglini with our Department of Environmental Protection. Mary, did I say your last name correctly?
It's all good in Italy.
Well, I know. Here we are, two Italian Americans who probably do not pronounce our names correctly. So Oh, and someone just told me it's Italian American Heritage Month to make me feel really guilty. Thank you. And we're displaying our heritage by not being able to actually pronounce our names correctly. I'll just call you Maria from now on. So, Mary, we're going to talk a little bit about leaves because it's the time of the year when our leaves, as I look out the window, look very pretty, but pretty soon they're not going to be on the trees. They're going to be laying on our lawns, in our driveways, on our streets, and we're going to talk a little bit about leaf season. It's a little bit different this year because on July 1st, the county, a new law went into place that prohibits the use of gas leaf blowers. So we're asking our residents, of course, to invest in electric blowers or a rake, the old-fashioned way that probably many of us dealt with our lawns, and that's to go with a rake. But at the same token, while we are going to have an extensive leaf collection um, service throughout the county, where our Department of Transportation will pick up leaves. And in fact, I think this picture is demonstrating just exactly how you are not supposed to put your leaves out. You're not supposed to rake them into the street, but up to the curb for then the collection to occur. We don't want leaves in the streets because then they are at risk for people to park on top of them. They are also at risk of washing into storm drains, which creates problems with our storm drains. People are supposed to rake their leaves onto that grassy area up against the curb, but not into the street. Or conversely, what Mary's going to talk about is the benefits of leaving leaves on your lawn, and what that does to your lawns. So, Mary.
Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate that. I will tell everyone fall is personally my favorite season in Montgomery County. Trees are starting to drop their leaves, and we are reminding everyone that gas-powered leaf blowers are banned in the county. But that doesn't mean that managing leaves has to be a hassle. While I do love a good leaf pile and delight when I see people leaving the leaves, every property isn't able to manage them the exact same way. At the Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection, we're encouraging folks to leave the leaves for a healthier environment. What most people may not know is that leaves are the most important natural resource for our soil and wildlife, and recycling them back into our soil is one of the most climate positive actions we can take. While it is important to keep them out of the roads and storm drains, leaving the leaves has wide-ranging benefits for our environment. Leaves feed our lawns, gardens, and trees with carbon and natural fertilizers. Leaves keep soil and roots moist and insulated. And blankets of leaves provide habitat for butterfly cocoons, firefly eggs, shelter for salamanders, frogs, and turtles, and a buffet of seeds and insects for birds all winter and spring. This fall, we challenge everyone to leave some leaves, even by starting small. Perhaps there's one garden bed or tree where you can rake your leaves under. Perhaps you can leave some where they fall on your lawns and gardens. Perhaps you can chop leaves that fall on your driveway with a mower and scatter them across your lawn or garden for fertilizer, and ask your landscaper to help do the same. In addition to providing education on how to compost at home, DEP provides yard trim composting bins at no added cost to county residents that help folks compost leaves on their property. These can be picked up at over 20 locations throughout the county. Single-family homes with county recycling services also receive weekly pickup 52 weeks a year of excess yard trim and leaves. Leaves and yard trim should be put out in paper lawn bags or preferably in reusable containers. For folks in the Down County Leaf Vacuum District, the DOT has 2 scheduled vacuum dates that can be found online or on neighborhood signs. As a friendly reminder, we do ask everyone to be a good neighbor by raking leaves out of the streets and away from store drains. To learn more about leaves, we welcome people to explore our property care pages at montgomerycounty.org/DEP.
So I'm pleased to report about the Department of Transportation efforts to do leaf collection. Signs will started going up around the county this Monday, and the first leaf collection is Monday, November 10th. So we are just 9 days away from or a little, I'm sorry, 13 days away from leaf collection. I feel bad that I just told Tom Fitzgerald our revenues are looking good, and then I did my math wrong. So, but we are 13 days away from the beginning of leaf collection across the county. And as Mary said, we do it in 2 rounds over a 6-week period. Again, we encourage people, please keep the leaves out of the streets, rake them onto the grassy area nearest the curb, not into the street, because that way they can again wash into storm drains and cause other problems. Or again, leave them on the lawns where you can. Mow them down so that you help with the fertilizer, as Mary said. All right, Suzanne Pollock has a question for Mary.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's an update on, since the laws passed about not using gas ones. Have a lot of people been reported? Do you see a lot of companies are adhering to this, or what kind of update do you have?
That's a great question. I'm not in our compliance division, but our compliance division has been processing complaints and violations since the law changed on July 1st and continue to do so. Appears to be ramping up as fall comes into place. They can certainly provide numbers on that internally, but we are starting with education. That is always our key point, is to educate and make sure people are aware about the law and know what's going to the law. They have reached the level of issuing several citations out there. It really depends on the property owner and the company. Many companies were preparing or had already converted to electric gas leaf blowers. Many of them have been adapting, and we hope that they're getting there. And our websites do have quite a bit of information and education to help them increase their use of electric leaf blowers.
Thanks. If I wanted to find out more, is there somebody who should I contact in the compliance department, or what?
You're more than welcome to contact me, and I can put you in touch with them, or you can
Okay.
also, of course, go through the executive's office and have them ask us as well.
Thank you.
Of course.
Every reporter should know they are welcome to bother Scott Peterson whenever they would like. Okay. Other questions about leaves? All right, very quickly. Moving on. I want to remind everyone, obviously, Halloween is this weekend. Please be careful in driving, especially on Halloween with so many trick-or-treaters. Remember, it's going to get darker and darker every evening. We will switch clocks on Saturday night, Sunday. So the fall back, which means it will be much darker in the evenings for the commute home. Be extra careful with so many people walking, riding bikes, and just now a different sunset and darkness earlier. It's important to drive carefully and to remember about pedestrians and bikers, and to just be to be extra careful, because this is the time of the year that we see our most injuries on the streets with bikers and pedestrians. It's also, of course, a wonderful time to do safety checks in your home. Check your smoke detectors, your carbon monoxide alarms. So now is the time to check your batteries, to replace them, to make sure they're up to date. Because obviously fire alarms, CO2 collectors do a wonderful job of keeping people safe, and help our fire department in so many ways. Speaking of our fire department, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the death of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service firefighter Christopher Kindle, who died earlier this month from cancer. The funeral is going to be Thursday in Poolesville at 11 a.m. He most recently worked at a station in Upper Montgomery County, but he has done his tour of duty in Rockville, Silver Spring, Gaithersburg, and at our Emergency Communications Center. He is a former Marine who spent 26 years as a Montgomery County firefighter. Our condolences go out to his family, his friends, and his colleagues who are mourning his death. Firefighting is not an easy profession, and we are so happy and proud of the many men and women who work for our Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service. And we certainly offer, again, firefighter Kindle his thanks for the sacrifices that he made throughout his career to keep so many Montgomery County residents safe and healthy. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Ashford. If she has anything she wants to say, her camera just popped up.
Sure. Just one brief update advisory for everyone. We are seeing an increase in hand, foot, and mouth disease across the county, not just in early childhood settings, but also in our K through 12 schools. So compared to last year, where we only had 9 cases at this point, we have 38. A small number in the context of all of the kiddos in Montgomery County, but still, it is highly contagious. We want folks to be aware if your child has a fever or sores on their hands or feet or body, please keep them home until they are fever-free for 24 hours without using fever-reducing medicine and until their blisters have healed. As always, if your kids are sick with a fever, please keep them home. It not just helps them recover, it protects the entire community. So we are in the throes of respiratory season. While this particular update is about hand, foot, and mouth, this applies to all of those nasty respiratory viruses, not just for kids, but also adults. If you are sick, please stay home, wash your hands, cover your face if you are out in public and still actively contagious. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Suzanne.
So this, let me just,
You're on.
so this is on another topic. Is this the timer?
It depends on the topic.
So I just want to make sure I understand something. Executive Elrich nominated Councilman Abernatz to be the Department of Rec. And I've gotten several emails saying that under the county charter, it says no member of the council shall be eligible for an appointment during the member's term of office to any other office or position carrying compensation. I just want to make sure this was all legit, or if there's an issue, or
so the county executive has announced his intention to nominate Gabe Albornoz to be the director of the Department of Recreation. That will not occur until Councilmember Albornoz resigns his position on December 1st. So there won't be the council will not take up his nomination until after he resigns.
Okay.
That is the resolution to your question. So
great. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yep. All righty. I think Dr. Stoddard.
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to add, so I actually just see late breaking news that the District of Columbia and a number of other Democratic states have actually filed suit about the cancellation of SNAP benefits on Saturday. I do not see Maryland having joined that lawsuit yet, but knowing Attorney General Brown, I would not be surprised to see his name be added to that docket. I think there's a half dozen or so states that have now sued over the last hour over the suspension of benefits starting on Saturday. So as is often the case in these situations, there will be lawyers.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you all very much Next Wednesday, we should be back with the county executive for his media briefing. We appreciate your time. And of course, happy Halloween to everyone. Please remember, change your clocks, fall back Saturday night, Sunday morning, and be careful of people walking and riding bikes, whether it's while trick-or-treating on Friday night or just any night, as sunset again will be in the middle, if not before the evening rush hour. Thank you all very much. Thank you to my amazing colleagues who work each and every day to help the people of Montgomery County, whatever storm is thrown at us, and have a pleasant Wednesday.